Wednesday, we had a live stream where we opened up, I don't know, it was like 360 or it was a ridiculous amount of Twilight Masquerade booster packs, hoping to pull Greninja. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Wednesday's live, we didn't pull it, but we did pull all this. This is all bulk. This is all just random stuff that needs to be sorted through yet. We've got just commons, uncommons, reverse holos, holo rares, basically anything that you wouldn't call a hit. So no illustration rares, no special illustration rares, no EXs or anything like that. It's just everything else that's in a pack. And bulk has really changed over the years. If you've been involved in the Pokemon trading card game for quite some time, you know the evolution of Pokemon card bulk. It's been really good in the past and now not so much. There was a point in really at the beginning of Sun and Moon. So Sun and Moon base, Guardians Rising, Burning Shadows, all the way up until really Crimson Invasion, where your bulk Pokemon cards, just a common and uncommon card, would be worth about 6-7 cents, somewhere around that ballpark. I remember as a storefront at that time trading booster boxes of Guardians Rising for 1,500 commons and uncommons. That was the big deal. Like, if you could find a booster box for 1,500 commons and uncommons, there were even competitors who were doing it at a little bit lower than that, maybe 1,400. I think there was one time where a competitor ran a special of 1,200 bulk common and uncommons. So just a bulk common and uncommon, 1,200 of them would get you a brand new sealed booster box. My goodness, how things have changed over time. Once we got through the pandemic, really midway through the pandemic, bulk took a major hit. Now, at one point in time, right after the release, right around Ultra Prism, bulk crashed. It ended up falling. There was just too much supply, not enough demand for it. You weren't seeing as many people buying these repacks or things like that on eBay, on Amazon, and there was just an overwhelming supply, a big surplus. All the big bulk buyers ended up kind of shutting things off, and because of that, bulk fell from like 6-7 cents down to about a penny, and very few people were even taking it at that point. Now, over time, things started to build back up a little bit. Then we hit the pandemic, and you could get really lucky and you might find a bulk buyer for around 3 cents till the middle of the pandemic, when things happened again, hit a wall, and just kind of fell down on its face. Dropped again to like a penny and a half, and that's kind of where we've been ever since then. So it's tough because you're like, well, what do I really do with my bulk now at this point? Because there's so much of it. Obviously, a lot of people have gotten to the point where they kind of just rip through packs looking for a hit, and if nothing's there, they just put it in a big pile like this, and they don't even sort it. They just put it in a big box, and then it sits there. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do with your bulk in this video, as well as a bunch of different cards that you want to make sure are not in your bulk, because honestly, bulk is worth so little right now. When I get asked all the time, Fanny, what should I do with all my bulk Pokemon cards? There's a lot that you can do with it. You can build towers, you can build houses, you can glue things together. Honestly, the bulk Pokemon cards do not have a whole lot of value to them. So unless you're dealing with a ton of them at a time, a lot of people like to just give it away to kids, give it away to libraries, give it away to schools, and that's obviously the easy solution. There's people who make their own repacks who will give them away for Halloween at trick-or-treat time. But if you're somebody who does that already and you're like, well, I still have a lot more, I don't really know what to do with it, there are still other things you can do. There's things that you can find your own niche in. There's a lot of people who will make art out of them. Maybe they will cut out pieces of it and kind of make their own designs and things like that. You can find that on Etsy. There's different YouTube channels and different TikToks and different Instagram accounts that show people making all these really cool creations. That's something that you can do. Like I said, you can make your own repacks. You can sell those on eBay, on Amazon, on different outlets. You can make your own Etsy store or something like that. You can make your own repacks, or you can save up a ton of them and try and sell them off to bigger companies or to your local game store, maybe a brick and mortar store that you are close to will take bulk. That way you don't really have to worry about the shipping costs behind it, because you can still fit about 6,500 to 7,000 commons and uncommons into a large flat rate box, and that will cost you about $21 to ship. If you use pirate ship, you can get it for a little bit less. If you use other outlets to kind of save on postage, you can ship it off for a little bit less, and maybe that will get you a booster box, or maybe it will get you close to a booster box. That is one thing that you can do as well, but those companies that take them are few and far between. There's not a ton of them out there anymore, but there are still some. your best bet is going to be to find maybe a local game store, one that's not too far away where you can drive a bunch of bulk to, but there are other things that you can kind of do with them. I would recommend taking the route where you give some of it away, maybe trade it into your local game store. That's really the best thing that you can do. But the key thing is to make sure you sort your bulk before doing anything. I cannot tell you how many times we go through bulk and it is completely unsorted, and unfortunately that does ruin the value of it. But there are some cards in here that you might want to pull out. Now, unfortunately, with Twilight Masquerade, there's really nothing in Twilight Masquerade as far as ancillary cards. So your non-hits that are worth a ton of money. Now, all bulk has a little bit of value to it, and there's different reverse holos that have a little higher of value to it. Like in Scarlet and Violet 151, for example, there are some reverse holos that are a little bit more difficult to pull, or at least it seems that way. So a lot of people pull out their reverse holos. You should really just organize bulk as soon as you're opening up a new pack. Honestly, there's a lot of really cool things that go along with Pokemon cards. So reading the attacks, looking at the artwork, even commons and uncommons have some stunning artwork. There's different pictures that you can build and things like that, storytelling that goes through all of them. And I think that is really worthwhile and important to make note of. But also sorting when you go. I always make like 6 different piles when I'm opening up Pokemon cards, because I want to have a section for reverse holos, a section for holo rares, a section for common and uncommons, a section for trainers, a section for gold cards, or a section for hits, and then a section for holo rares. And I make sure that those piles don't intermingle, so they don't roll into one another. And the reason I do that is because a lot of times those are the piles that stores will pay differently on. That's number one. And also when I put them in their own individual 5-row box, then it makes it easier if there's a specific card that I'm looking for, maybe a specific card in competitive play that is doing well, then it's more easy to locate. It's easier to find when it comes to listing cards like that. And I know that not everybody wants to sell on TCG Player. Maybe you don't want to be a Pokemon reseller, and that's totally fine. But even as a Pokemon card collector, or even as somebody who wants to play the competitive game, it's a really good idea to sort your bulk, especially when you're opening up packs. So that way it makes it more easy to locate certain cards, whether you're building decks or maybe you're just a collector and you're looking to trade cards off. There's a lot of staples in the current competitive format that are worth more than even ultra rares. So you want to make sure that you have these easily accessible in case you do want to trade them off. A lot of times, even if your bulk game store, your local game store will not take all the bulk, they will probably take a lot of competitive cards and give you a decent percentage on their market value, so that way you can use that for trading credit. We talk about this all the time. The best thing that you can possibly do when you're opening up Pokemon cards is your goal is to get that average pack value down as low as you possibly can. So for example, if you're opening up a booster pack of Paradox Rift, which is where you will find this Earthen Vessel, a booster pack of Paradox Rift right now, if you go to the store and you buy it like a Walmart or a Target, you're looking at what, $4.40 or something like that. I can't even remember what the current MSRP is. You can find it cheaper online, but let's just say for the sake of argument that it's $4.40 after tax and everything like that. Your goal is to get that cost down as low as you possibly can. So maybe you pull a hit. However, opening a set like Paradox Rift is a little bit better for you than Twilight Masquerade, because your chances of pulling something is better in Paradox Rift than it would be in Twilight Masquerade. Yeah, in Twilight Masquerade you could pull the Greninja, but the pull rates in Twilight Masquerade are so difficult that the actuality of that happening is very, very slim. Whereas Paradox Rift, you could pull something like the Roaring, is it the Roaring? You could pull something good like the Roaring Moon, I think is in that set. You could pull that special illustration rare, but if you don't, it's okay, because you could pull the regular art Iron Hands, which is about a $13 card. You could also pull something like this, an Earthen Vessel, which is worth a few dollars, and that basically evens out your pack cost. Or you could pull this, and you could also pull an Iron Hands or something else, which brings that pack cost down quite a bit. So the ancillary cards that might have a little value because they are good in the competitive game makes a huge deal, and it's a good thing to talk about too, because that helps keep the costs a little bit lower for competitive players, especially if you're feeding these into local game stores and places like that where they can kind of put them in the right hands, and really helps buff up your collection dollars quite a bit as well. So you may not want to trade off a bunch of your ultras, but if you have a lot of extra duplicates of something like this kind of lying around because you've opened up a fair amount of Paradox Rift, what are you waiting for? What are you sitting on them for? Yeah, you may want to keep one regular and one reverse holo for your master set, and that would be very important, but if you're not playing the competitive game and these are just sitting there taking up space in your bulk box, you can go out and you can get $3.50 value on this, which is basically worth more than 95% of the regular double rares that you might pull in all of of Scarlet and Violet. So if you're missing something from Temporal Forces, or you're missing a regular Art Greninja EX, let's say you have maybe 10 of these, that will get you a special illustration rare or a higher end illustration rare. It helps bring that cost down quite a bit. We've been talking about the Pokemon market a lot over the past several weeks, and a lot of things that have been really blowing up in price. Making sure that you focus on these cards helps bring those costs down. So then it doesn't feel as hard when those prices blow up. And once things settle down a little bit, and we're already seeing retraces happen all over the place, these continue to do well. And especially now, as Worlds is about to start, we'll have the World Championships next month. In August, and then the new competitive season starts back up, and people are going to need decks for league challenges and league cups, things like that. It's really good to don't leave the value sitting in your bulk box. Like, don't trade off this value, for bulk prices. Make sure you get your full value out of it. So we're going to go through these relatively quickly. I think I've got 19 of them here, but I wanted to highlight a couple different points here. So this is Earthen Vessel. This is from Paradox Rift. This is a really important card because it lets you find energy cards. So it basically just speeds up consistency in your deck. If you have a dead hand, you can kind of discard one card from your hand, and you're able to search your deck for 2 energy cards. And you might need that for maybe a Radiant Greninja that you wanna discard one so you can draw 2 new cards, or maybe you can attach multiple cards, multiple energy cards in one turn, or maybe you're playing a deck like Golden Go, and it's very important to discard energy cards so that way your attack does more to knock out an opponent's Gardevoir, or whatever the case may be. Earthen Vessel is a very important card in the current competitive format, and because of that, it continues to climb up in price. It's currently sitting at $3.80, $3.79 for just a singular copy. The Reverse Holo doing even better, selling for almost $5, $5.50, $5.34 for a Reverse Holo. The caveat that I wanted to impress upon you is that if you are saving up a bunch of bulk, and you have, let's say, 4 of these or more of these, because this is a fairly easy card to pull, it's just an uncommon card. So if you've opened up a few booster boxes of Paradox Rift even, you probably have several copies of this. People look for playsets, especially if you sell on TCG Player. The big thing to do is to look, there's a filter option where you can kind of look at the storefronts who are selling 4 or more copies. And if you're selling 4 or more copies, the price goes up a little bit. So these are the lowest prices that are available for 4 or more copies of a singular card on TCG Player. Columbus Card Shop, for example, has 4 of them. They're at $4.26 plus $1.22, free shipping over $5. The reason this is important for a buyer is because if they can get everything from one person, first of all, obviously having it all in one envelope is ideal, because then you don't have to worry as much about the post office losing packages. Maybe you're ordering 4 separate ones. That would be kind of a pain to keep track of, and also you're hoping 4 envelopes make it safely without getting lost, or without any of them getting lost or damaged or anything like that. Buying them all from one place would obviously be ideal. Also, the shipping costs. A lot of companies offer free shipping on $5 or more. This is something that TCG Player kind of put into account a while ago, a couple of years ago now, and then they upped it a little bit to $1.22 required shipping costs for anything below $5. So if you're buying, let's say, 4 of these from different vendors, different storefronts at $3.79 a piece, just one singular copy, you're paying $1.22 shipping on each one of those, which is going to cause a lot of issues in cost. It's going to add up. That shipping cost is going to add an extra $4.88 to your total, which is going to be a lot of pain for people. So buying them all from one person, even though it might be a dollar more per copy, it actually saves you, or 50 cents more per copy. It actually saves you money in the long run because you're not paying the additional shipping costs, and you're getting free shipping. So because of that, 4 or more copies gets you a little bit more, and that's something to kind of take note of if you are selling on TCG Player. So this is Earthen Vessel. This is probably the biggest one right now in competitive play, but also Buddy Pfin. Buddy Pfin is one of those cards that's not only in Temporal Forces, but it's also in a lot of build and battle boxes out there. So if you've opened up build and battle boxes, you can find a singular copy of this in the Twilight Masquerade build and battle boxes, but also the Temporal Forces build and battle boxes. And this card also very, very important. Increases consistency. Make sure you don't. Make sure you at least have a bench Pokemon, so you don't get knocked out early in the match. But $2.03. It continues to go up a little bit because it is so important, especially with the era of Pokemon that we are in right now, where we're using a lot of evolved Pokemon. It's not as much of like a big basic format or anything like that. So this continues to rise. $2.03 $2.03 is the current going rate for this, $2.34 for a reverse holo copy, and then just a little bit higher if you have 4 or more of, you can see Endless Possibilities has 31 of them there at $2.09. The next one we're going to talk about is Counter Catcher, also from Paradox Rift. So Paradox Rift, very, very good for a lot of these ancillary cards. Paldea Evolve was kind of the big one for a long time, and then Paldean Fates came in and kind of ruined that with the reprint of Iono, and because of that, Iono went way, way down. But here's Counter Catcher right here. This one's still doing extremely well. There's another copy of Counter Catcher that was printed in Crimson Invasion. You might have some of that in your bulk as well. Also selling very well right now because it does do the exact same thing. You can use older cards as long as the text is the same. So Counter Catcher from Crimson Invasion would also be legal to use in standard play right now. Normal copy selling for about $1.52. Now that's not a ton of money. $1.52 is not a ton of money, but that's more than, again, a lot of ultra rares, a lot of double rares from the Scarlet and Violet era. $1.70 if you have more than 4 copies. The reverse holo selling for $2.29. So this from Paradox Rift doing extremely well. If you have less Pokemon or less prize cards remaining, you can use this and kind of, it's basically a Lysander effect where you can bring out a bench Pokemon from your Pokemon. Here's Super Rad, or from your opponent's Pokemon. Here's Super Rad right here. This was from Paldea Evolve, but also in a lot of build and battle decks as well. Currently selling for about $1. It's sitting at 98 cents. A little bit more than that if you have more than 4 copies of. This is a very, very popular card, but also easily accessible. There's been several printings of this throughout the years, so you might have older versions of this in your bulk box as well. Reverse Holo selling for $1.23, so this one doing extremely well right now. Definitely one to look for. Arven is a huge one right now. There were 2 different printings of Arven. There was one in Obsidian Flames. That's the one that's selling for a little bit more, but also one in Scarlet and Violet base, so there's 2 different variants that you might want to look for. They look the exact same. The only thing that's different is the set abbreviation in the bottom left-hand corner, but this card has been trending upward. This was used a lot in Charizard decks for quite some time, but then everybody realized how good it is for basically any deck, so then it started getting put in basically every deck out there. Normal copy, because of that, is selling for $2.15. The reverse holo, a little bit closer to that $3 mark, but you can see if you have 4 or more copies, and this is a staple in a lot of decks where people play 4 copies of it in their deck, really starting to climb up. 17 copies for All Day Games TCG, currently selling for $3 a piece, so commanding about 85 cents more per copy if you have 4 or more. So definitely a card you want to look for in your bulk. Pokestop right here. This one also from Pokemon Go, definitely one to pay attention to. This one's going to rotate out the next time rotation happens. So all the yellow border cards are going to rotate the next time rotation happens, which we're assuming is going to be in about April. So you still have plenty of tournaments where these are going to be legal. This one has been doing fairly consistent work. It's basically just you discard some cards from the top of your deck, looking for an item card. Basically helps you speed up consistency again in the game. That's really what all these cards do. Reverse Holo currently selling for $3.50. That's really strong. And $1.24 for a normal copy, about the same for 4 of, about the same for play sets. Here's Jet Energy. This card has gone down quite a bit, but definitely one to pay attention to. It still could be good in the future. It's going to be legal for a couple of years yet. $1.06 for the normal copy. It used to be selling for a little bit over $3, so it has fallen quite a bit, but still worth it to pull out of your bulk. Reverse Holo selling for about $1.27. You get pretty much the same rate for play sets, and more than that, you can see RC Games has 67 of them, only selling at about $1.19, which is just a little bit more than a singular copy, selling at $1.06. Here's Switch Cart from Astral Radiance. This is also important for basic Pokemon, switching them out. Might not be as big of a deal if Lost Box doesn't continue to do as well, but there are going to be situations where a lot of basic Pokemon are out there that you want to retreat and heal some damage from. So still not doing bad. $1.07 for a normal copy. It's on the up and up a little bit. Ever since the middle of May, it had fallen down to about 60 cents, but still selling for just over $1. The Reverse Holo selling for $1.69. Roughly the same, a little bit more if you have multiple copies. You can see RC Games up there having 38 copies, selling for about $1.19 a piece. Here's Pok Gear 3.0. A lot of copies of these that are out there. This was in Scarlet and Violet base, but also, again, in a lot of build and battle boxes. Only selling for about 50 cents, but on the rise a little bit. Now, it's backed off a little bit over the past couple of weeks, but at one point in time, it was really close to that dollar mark. Currently, it's at 48 cents. You get a little bit more if you're selling multiple copies of it. So you can see 3 different sellers up there: 41 copies, 105 copies, 151 copies, selling for about 55 to 60 cents. So a little bit more that it gets you if you're selling 4 copies of it, or if you have more than 4 copies available. But an important card to kind of look for supporters. Again, all about consistency. Here's Superior Energy Retrieval right here. This one from Paldea Evolved. This one's been on the decline a little bit over the past couple of months here, but another way that you can kind of add up energies from your discard pile, put them back into your hand, which is really important for a deck like Golden Go, or some of the other decks that are out there. Currently selling for 54 cents, so a little bit above 54 cents, but if you have multiple copies of it, you can see 5 copies there, 6 copies there, selling for 67 cents a piece. The reverse holo selling for $1.28. Here's Irido, which is doing extremely well. This was a really big card when Palkia was causing a lot of issues in the competitive format. Palkia not quite as big now as what it once was, but it could come back a little bit. The reverse holo selling for $5.04. This is from Astral Radiance. Should be in the format for about 6-7 months yet until we run into rotation. $3.80 for a singular copy. Again, this is a holo rare. There were deck exclusives of these as well. Those were put in build and battle boxes. Those still sell okay, not as well as a holographic rare. You can see $2.82 if you have 4 copies of it. A reverse holo, 10 copies of it selling for $3.95. So it commands a little bit more if you have a playset there. Here's Snorlax from Pokemon Go. This is a deck on its own, basically. It's just the Snorlax stall deck. It does really well. It's won regional events. We should see do fairly well at Worlds. It's currently selling for about 81 cents for a holo foil. Reverse holo selling for about $1.30. Again, that's from Pokemon Go. That should be legal for about 7-ish months yet until we run into rotation. Here's Bibarel from Brilliant Stars. This one also does have a deck exclusive non-holo rare that was in the build and battle boxes. That does not too bad. Also, $1.39 for a regular holo rare version of it, one singular card. A little bit more if you're selling multiples. You can see RC Games has 205 of them available at $1.85 a piece. Again, the reverse holo, $2.54. But this is important to draw cards in your hand. If you evolve Bidoof into Bibarel, you can draw cards into your hand until you have 5 of them available. Here's a couple of EXs that we'll look at that are still doing very well. Teal Mask, Ogre. Obviously, this was from Twilight Masquerade. It started out fairly low at about $6.50, jumped up a lot, and now it's kind of leveled off a little bit. It's sitting at $8.40 currently, but that's really good for a double rare card. If you have more than 4 copies, it sells for a little bit more. You can see Columbus Card Shop up there having 8 copies at $9.78. So that if you have multiple copies of a regular art, I would recommend moving off on some of these now. Keep the one for your collection, and then you can utilize your extra copies to build something else. Unless you want to play competitive, which I highly recommend. You have code cards, things like that. You can scan all your code cards and use them on the PTCG Live, the app, which is free to download, or obviously there are code scanner apps that you can use to kind of sell those code cards if you so choose. But Teal Mask, Ogre, definitely a card right now in competitive play that people are looking for, that people need. So you can utilize that to kind of grow your collection a little bit. Same thing with Raging Bolt. Now, Raging Bolt has fallen quite a bit, and I would recommend moving these now because once we get the tins that are coming out in August, the collection boxes that are now being announced for Amazon exclusives, Raging Bolt is going to be way more accessible. This is going to drop well below a bulk Pokemon Ultra Rare goes for. It's going to drop down to about $1, $1.50, somewhere around that area. $4.10 is where it's currently selling for. If you have multiple copies of it, it goes for pretty close to the same thing. But move off on those extras now before all the additional Raging Bolts kind of hit the market. Here's Dragapult EX, still doing okay. Not as well as what it once was. Dragapult EX from Twilight Masquerade, currently selling for $4.73. A little bit more if you have a playset of them. Duck and Wolf has 4 available for $6 a piece if you're looking to buy a playset on TCG Player. But a lot of people haven't figured out how to play Dragapult. It seems like the best way to play it is going to be with this card right here, Pidgeot EX. This card has been just killing it in competitive format ever since release, doing extremely well in the secondary market as well ever since release. Pidgeot EX, very strong competitive card with that quick search ability. It's been going up and up and up, currently selling for $9.40 on TCG Player, pretty much the same price if you do have multiple copies of it, but definitely a bulk double rare or an extra double rare that you might have additional copies of that you might want to move off of because that $9.40 can get you a lot of different cards in the Scarlet and Violet area. Even Luminan V, this one not bad. There was obviously deck exclusives of this as well that were in the trainer toolkit, but the one from Brilliant Stars still doing very, very well, selling for about $3.59 currently, around the same price if you have multiple copies of it, but because of that luminous sign right there, the ability, again, all about consistency and things like that. And then we've got the Iron Hands EX. This is kind of the biggest one right now as far as regular arts go. This one's still doing well in competitive play with its future deck. 11 copies selling for $15.99. Singular copy selling for $14.34, but again, a double rare that is even worth more than some special illustration rares out there. So if there's cards you are looking for to fill out master sets or fill out your binder and things like that, these are bulk cards that you really want to move off of. Don't let them just eat up value in your bulk boxes, and that's just something that I think is important to talk about so that way you know. There's a lot of stuff you can do with your bulk. Unfortunately, your bulk Pokemon is just not worth what it once was, but you want to make sure that you mitigate any value that you're leaving behind. So knowing this stuff and moving off of those cards, so that way you can kind of grow your collection as best as possible. And then after you sort through your bulk, If you want to make secondary lots, repacks, things like that to sell on Amazon or eBay, go nuts. Or if you want to take it all into your local game store, by all means, go nuts. You can trade it off a lot of times for store credit or things like that. But these are cards that you really want to set aside, so that way you can show to them and be like, these are the cards that I have that are worth a little bit more, because they're going to probably sort through your bulk anyways. So this way you already have it all pulled out. You can let them know, and that saves them time. It saves them energy of sorting through bulk, and gives you a little bit more for your collection value. So I hope you find the information good, important. If you do, please hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the algorithm. Thank you guys so much for everything. I love you guys. We'll be back tomorrow with another video. Until next time, peace!